Hi,
Hello.
Sacha. Hello.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Good to see your face.
You as well. It's been a long time. 4 years, I think, almost.
Well, you've got a fantastic tree behind you. Wow.
Yes, I thought in the light of speaking about Credo Mutwa, we should choose a great tree.
Great idea. Yeah, I heard that he passed. Was that today or yesterday?
It was the 25th, so I think we're on the 27th, so 2 days ago.
Oh, wow.
And I
Oh,
just
God bless.
felt that, yeah, I just felt that, to take a moment in this corona madness to take back the crown, like just pay a bit of attention to what is important.
Yeah, absolutely right. No, he played his role and he played it well.
Yeah, so thanks so much for your time, Sasha. I just want to say I have been watching your work, first of all, for so many years, and it's just been such an inspiration. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amanda. And time is the one thing that I have plenty of. And of course, no one's going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. We're in our first day of lockdown in South Africa, and you know, it's quite an unbelievable it's quite an unbelievable moment in history, really. There's so much going on, and
Yeah.
it's such an opportunity, really, to kind of just hold a little bit of space with you, just to say thank you to this man, because nobody can gather, and nobody can really pay proper tribute to the size of the consciousness that he held. So I just thought, with your help, we could just say thank you to this man
No,
who,
indeed.
to
I- I'm I'm glad. I'm glad at the opportunity, Amanda. And he was a great sangoma, and really, as the true flame keepers of Southern Africa, these people are magnificent. I mean, the energetic that they've anchored over generations is desperately important. And let's not forget that it was really the sangoma and principally Credo Mutwa who reminded the modern generation of the Draco reptilian aspect to the, let's say, the infiltration of Homo sapien, if we want to look at it that way. Either which way, it's part of our cosmogenesis. And it was the flame keepers of these great sangoma, like Credo Mutwa, who have reminded us that this is also enshrined in the oldest, most arcane African traditions. And those traditions are marrying now with what we are waking up to in the zeitgeist. We're waking up to this aspect of our greater cosmogenetic, and it's
mm,
important stuff. And all of us need to now pay close attention to the messages that have been anchored and held by those flame keepers.
yeah, he's been red pilling us, you could say, for 8 decades. He was 98 when he died, and I contemplated, why now in his passing. And I think, possibly because now is the most important time for people to be hearing his message. He has so much wonderful information out there, and people have a lot of time on their hands to read his books and listen to his poetry and go over some of his YouTube videos. And of course, like you say, David Icke did hours and hours of interviews of his around the reptilian agenda, and all sorts of amazing storytellings that have been transmitted by him to thousands of people over his lifetime. And I thought I'd sit on the ground outside with a great tree behind me, and just see if we can just hold a little bit of space for a little bit of storytelling, in his honor, because I met him twice. And I just wanted to share a couple of the stories with you that he shared, because they are so relevant at the moment. So, I consider him a giant, and one of the last times that I saw him was in 2013, when I had just come back from running my own little sort of online seminar around the calendar, the Adams calendar. And I went to him after that, and spoke to him about his take on the calendar. And of course, you know, my theme was really, who's the mama in Mama Africa? You know, who's the mama? And he gave such a beautiful teaching about Africa, and, you know, how far back the cosmogenesis goes to the original feminine, and you know, this whole idea of, before even the Anunnaki came, there were these sort of female, these kind of goddesses, I suppose, but more feminine beings that started out with this blueprint, putting the blueprint down for what would come afterwards. And then he went on to tell a lot of amazing stories about the mother, the original mother, and then the Anunnaki mother, who, you know, was, I think, is often left out of the Anunnaki stories. So, you know, people talk often about Enki as kind of like the father of the Genesis project, but nobody talks about the mother. So who was the mother? You know, Mami, Ninhursag, there's many names for her, but she was the female geneticist of this current, you know, you could say, format of our genes. And
indeed, well, I think Ninhursag was sister, as I understand it, to Enlil and Enki, more or less. And it was, my understanding is that it was the three of them who came and did the visitation to Earth and began the great work, the great prototype human genetic experimentation. I think that's how the story goes.
Yeah, so she was the sister, but nobody speaks about her, and she was a geneticist. And she really, I mean, in some of the stories, she really loved humanity, and she was on the benevolent side along with Enki. And she, in a way, could be considered the mother of the current hybrid form in you know, in our genes. And I just thought it was interesting because he speaks a lot about the importance of the feminine and the rising of and the reawakening of the feminine as part of what we're going through at the moment.
Yes, and that corresponds to the era of Atlantis and the era of Mu. And if we want to also look at our civilizational complex in those binary terms, then in a sense, what we're seeing today is a self-imposed auto-destruct of the last of the expressions of the Atlantean era. You know, the Hopi nation prophecies speak to the fact that we were all given brown skin, red skin, yellow skin, white skins, were given different mandates to go forward. And the white skin was given the mandate of fire, to explore fire as the element. And of course, we've taken that element as far as it can go with nuclear bombs and with smashing, you know, particles against one another in, you know, super hadron collider experimentation, so on. We've really taken fire to the most diabolical extent as part of the play, as a part of the expression of what we were seeking and the means by which we were seeking to discover ourselves, I guess. But that Atlantean mythos now is in its final death croak, as I understand it, as I see it. And we're on the verge of the paradigmatic shift, which in a sense is a re-emergence of the true aspect of the Mu civilization. And that, of course, is centered, a great deal of that energetic, hyperdimensional energetic is contained within the Southeast Asian footprint. I believe that Bali, where I am right now, is a very important aspect. The Balinese people, the Balinese priesthood, the Balinese traditions, from animist all the way through to the remnants of the Mahabharata, with the Hindu kind of infused ceremonial ritualism that the Balinese are still very much connected to, in an unconscious way, was part of that flame-keeping story. They've been keeping many aspects of these old stories alive without even knowing themselves what they're doing with these enactments, with these rituals, with these extraordinary effigies and totems they use in ceremony. But in a sense, all of that is now being revealed. It seems like every single social compact or social construct, whether it's Bali or whether it's in Manhattan or Los Angeles, we're all of us meeting the diametric geometry of the unresolved aspects of who and what we are as a peoples. We've been casting those into the field. They've come back as images, as icons, as event horizons, as clusterfucks. And we're now having to deal with the mother of all clusterfucks, with this corona virus theater, this apocalyptic theater that apparently at the collective gestalt level, we are wanting to experience and go through these images again. It's apocalyptic stuff. The difference is, I believe, that we're seeing a bloodless Armageddon, to use Benjamin Fulford's expression. Right now, it's a benevolent collapse. We could have been going into an apocalyptic timeline that was written for us, which was a lot worse than this one. But I believe that we already transmuted it into a higher probability, a higher outcome. So we're not going to see the worst apocalyptic scenario, which is cataclysm, which is catastrophic failure of the human species. And then, of course, we would have to go into another seeding of Homo sapien, which might take thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. Who knows? It appears to my mind, from what I've been evaluating in my life, it appears that we've actually collectively, unconsciously engineered for ourselves a soft landing in the auto-destruct of the false images, the false light worship that we have been pegged to as a civilization. And we're going to be coming through this tunnel, this self-imposed death and rebirth, I think, in a profoundly beautiful and affirmative way.
Yeah, it's quite an unbelievable time. And I think a lot of people are straining to put the pieces together. So it's always nice to just break these things down for people. But for me, my nickname has always been Moo. I've always been called Moo. So I've kind of carried the the thread of Moo along somehow with my lineage. And I'm always saying to people, the apocalypse actually means the reveal, the bringing down of the veils. And that is where, I guess, the great trauma lies, because it's so shocking to see what has been hidden as this death of the old, you could say, the old empire or whatever it was, the old experience comes to an end and all the truth starts to be revealed. It's quite something to get my head around. And it has, I've been on this game, you could say, of trying to put it together for my whole life. And even when I listen to new teachings or listen to some of what you put out, it's still quite something to try and hold the whole story together. But I'm Sacha.
By design, let me just say,
Yes.
by design, because each of us, in a sense, are, as a human being, we are holding that indivisible line between heaven and hell, between the angelic and the demonic, to speak in very simplistic terms. Each of us is that primary archetype of the creature that is caught between the angelic and the demonic. And our lives become the alchemy, the chemistry of our soul becomes the alchemy of how we transmute the expressions, the experiences that we invoke and feed back to ourselves. Are we able to still ourselves within that conundrum, within that storm? Everyone's life is a storm, a perfect storm. The situations, the circumstances, the fate, the destiny, the timeline entanglement, the relationships of each one of us is perfectly appointed to suit ourselves and inviting our higher calling at any given time. We're being invited into the transmutative, the transcendent. And I think that once we recognize this, no matter how lowly or high-born our lives may be, we are manifesting perfect geometry at any given time to create for ourselves the path of least resistance to our highest expression. That's a very powerful thing for us to realize, because it's in that recognition that we realize that relationship with self becomes all powerful and all meaningful. We have got to finally slow down to that still point, see ourselves, salute ourselves, bow before ourselves, and absolve ourselves, redeem ourselves. And it's in that letting go and moving into a new dimension of expression, where we no longer identify to stuff that's happening out there. We no longer give away our fire. We no longer surrender our sovereignty to fictions like governments and kings and popes and monotheistic religious constructs and all of the stuff out there that is constantly trying to enchant us and bring us away from a recognition of our true divinity. Now that we have this vast, epic, planetary lull, this intake of breath, we have the perfect still point at the collective level to begin to recognize that everything that ever happened to us at any given time in any of our incarnations was self-imposed, self-willed, and self-revealed. It was never being done to us by an agency or an agent out there. We were always the ones, in a sense, steering the outcome, because it's what we imagine that we then manifest. Cities, continents, nations, flags, dominions, realms, empires, all these things emerge out of the imagination. They are imagined first, and then they manifest. They've taken a long time to manifest, invariably. Now we move into a new quantum unfoldment, with the vibral light impacting our Earth, with the photon band that we're moving through at the galactic level, all of these incredible astronomical and astrophysical phenomena that are meeting us in this quadrant, in this continuum, at this time, is where the true grace of God or the revelation exists. And here we have the chance to move into a quantum leap forward in our capacity to manifest instantly. That's the point of moving from 3D through the fourth dimensional realm into the fifth or root fifth dimension, is that we can start to manifest that new earth instantly. It's not going to take centuries to bring that new imagining into manifestation, but we must imagine the greatest outcomes. And we must be affirmative and expansive and creative and know our true divinity in order to paint on the canvas of life in the best possible way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I mean, I wanted to just share with you, for your thoughts, another story from Credo, in kind of the line of just the storytelling tradition. And he said, you know, one of the ways that we can really learn about ourselves is to just have enough time to tell each other our stories. And, you know, he was talking about, he said, you know, Africa has had so many snake priestesses and incredible lineages where women were so close to the snake energies. And he said there were always this incredible magic between women and snakes. And he said at some point the church, religion, etc., came in and separated the feminine from the snake energy, and said, you know, that's a demonic force, that, you know, they cannot be together, etc., and kind of split the feminine from, you could say, her own essence. And that was an interesting thought, you know, in the light of this great split that you're talking about, you know, in terms of everything got separated and things are starting to come back, because there is a lot of fear around, you know, is the Catholic Church the demon here? Is the you know, what, like, how do we put all these pieces together? Because there is so much around the serpent energy, the Luciferian energies coming up at the moment, and how is that all connected to an aspect maybe of the feminine coming home?
Well, the feminine is the subconscious, the unconscious, and in that sense, the masculine is the conscious. And the marrying of the unconscious or subconscious element or realm or dominion to our conscious dominion is the great challenge now. As I said, if we don't consciously manifest or imagine high outcomes, then our subconscious or subliminal consciousness will conjure into the field the creature that will threaten us or devour us or shock us or traumatize us into becoming. So in the feminine, the great awakening of the feminine is the unconscious realm marrying with the conscious realm. We're now seeing a planet caught up in a apocalyptic theater of unprecedented, unheralded proportion. We have never, as a species in recorded history, ever gone into such a global flux of neurosis, anxiety, fear reflexivity, and frankly, abject bullshit. And on the one hand, we should be profoundly ashamed of ourselves and of the fictions called governments and all of the institutions that are also fictions, the health authorities, all of it. They're all buying into it. Fear is the thing that is manifesting the virus. But the virus is an excretion of the cell, a toxification of the cell, which is being excreted. And we are being bombarded by 5G radio waves, by Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all of these mutant radiations and frequencies that we have permissioned through our governments and the military industrial complexes to poison our atmosphere, weaponize our biosphere with our tax dollars. And apparently we were complicit every step of the way, generation after generation. We allowed the fluoridization of our water subsequent to the Second World War, so that all of our pineal glands have become calcified with municipal water supplies that put these toxins in. And that's happened now for almost getting on for a century, certainly since the Second World War. We have allowed for glyphosates to be put into the world's food supply and all of these poisons and mutant molecules. We have allowed for the aluminum to be rained down on us from geoengineering exercises, multi-billion-dollar geoengineering exercises. There have been hundreds of thousands of pilots and engineers and scientists and biologists who've been part of those chains of unfoldment, and of one way or the other, we have permissioned this. So we're having aluminum raining down on us. We've got the glyphosates in the food supply. We've got the fluoridization and calcification of our pineal glands. And now, as Dr. Klinghardt reminds us, 5G is the catalyst. That's the trigger. These mutant elements inside our bodies are basically making their way toward the pineal gland. And once the 5G weaponized frequencies are activated, you're going to find an auto-destruct of our capacitance as humans carrying spirit. Because once the pineal function is completely weaponized or blocked, blacked out, at that point, there is no conduit to source. And this appears to be the diabolical enterprise of the Babylonian priesthood. And Klinghardt argues that he thinks it's a clusterfuck of ignorance that has led us to this. I think he's being very polite. I suggest that this is absolutely by design, and that these deviants who have been the invisible mastery for hundreds of years, essentially through the Jesuitical device, issuing through the Roman Catholic Church and through the Empire, British Crown, and of course onto the New World that emerged through the United States of America, with the military-industrial complex being birthed essentially out of Washington, D.C. We've got a perfect storm that we have permissioned. And that thing has created a perfect bomb inside the pineal gland of every human being. We are all of us carrying those poisons, and each of us must release ourselves from them. I'm not sure that the mother, the great matriarch, is going to save us. I think that matriarchal element is now something more connected to the inner flame, the inner void, the subconscious. The still point is, to me, the mother that is now beckoning. And the emergence of the Dark Mother, the continent of Africa, that's a powerful story there, which is why you wanted to discuss the importance of the shamanic traditions that beloved Credo Mutwa has been anchoring. We would have to go into a story on that, expressly that. But I'll leave by saying, Amanda, that I firmly believe that the mother, the matriarch, the emergence of the divine feminine is the still point. It is the void within us that is inviting us to reconnect with source through that quantum aspect of our supernature.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, I mean, just for my journey, it's been, you know, I've done like a lot of what I can to help, you could say, what I can in my own capacity to help. And then, you know, have actually experienced that weaponization of computers, what, you know, I don't know if it wouldn't have been through 5G, but just what I experienced was, I'd say, AI and deep state military weaponization. So, you know, targeting individuals. So I was one of the people that, you know, even just a small little fry like me, you know, got this beaming, this targeting through the internet, through the computer, through the phones. They just picked up on me, and that was it. And they, you know, basically flattened me for a year. So, you know, I know that this stuff is real, and I know that they can target individuals, and we have to rise beyond that and move beyond fear.
Well, let me speak briefly to that, if I may. I mean, last year we mounted the Judicial Commission of Inquiry. Forgive me, it was the year before. We launched the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into human trafficking and child sex abuse. That's the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, or the ITNJ. And what we've learned through testimonies from survivors and experts and witnesses is that what you're saying is absolutely true. Individuals have been targeted and activated. Voice of God, all of that stuff being clairaudiently beamed into people's skulls, messaging, manifestations inside the bodies, all sorts of hyperdimensional magic being played out in the human gene, and good old-fashioned abductions and ritual sacrifice of innocence. I mean, it's across the board. You know, the diabolical enterprise you belong to where we truly from so much to what's happening. I will say that a lot of these testimonies came from military veterans and people who'd survived their own service to the nation. I mean, fancy that, you know, marching on the flag and getting shot at in wars, and then coming home and
Hi, Sacha. I'm not hearing you yet. It's always on that topic, eh? That seems to be a disconnect.
well, maybe it's one of the NS algorithms. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if you're doing data mining and marrying words and tax up.
Yeah, I'm struggling to hear you. It's just buffering at the moment. But what I heard was that there were so many testimonies about these kinds of attacks that people have experienced, and that a lot of it came down, did you say military insiders?
Yes, people who were, you know, working for the military and were abducted into these eugenics experiments, correct?
Yeah, no, it's definitely real and not very pleasant, I must admit. So, Sacha, I'm not sure what else there is to say for now. I just wanted to really connect with you a little bit and just say thank you, to our great Sanusi, the record keeper of Africa, of all of these mysteries, and just hold a bit of space for that, and with you, really, just to say thank you so much for this level of consciousness that you've been putting out as well. And if there's anything else, we can keep going. I'm just not sure how the connection will do, and I know we're going to chat again on Sunday. No, your volume's off, Sacha. Your volume. Yeah.
Is that? Are you hearing me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Yeah.
Yeah, happy to pick up again with you on Sunday. Hopefully we'll have a better signal here, Amanda.
Okay, well, lovely to be with you for this little tribute to our beautiful record keeper of Africa. And we wish him an amazing journey into the other side. I'm sure it's quite a show on the other side. I'm sure he's seeing some remarkable things
Quite
happening.
certain of it.
Yeah.
I have to say, let me just say that also a very great sage, Daddy Janki of the Brahma Kumaris, also passed over yesterday. And she was very much a counterpoint to Credo Mutwa. She was 104 years old.
Wow.
And she was absolutely the counterpoint to Credo Mutwa. I'm certain they never met, but it's extraordinary that Daddy Janki, the head of the Brahma Kumaris, died yesterday, and she was a very great sage as well. So it would appear that some of these great gatekeepers and flame keepers have moved on and transitioned, possibly so that they can do even greater work in the hyperdimensional spheres.
Absolutely. Wow. And I mean, he's going to be such a giant like you say, in those hyperdimensional spheres. And one of the last things that he said to me was, what we really need on this plane is a valley of forgiveness.
Beautiful. Love that. I hope to that.
Yeah,
thank you, Amanda.
Okay, Sacha, look forward to seeing you again. And thanks very much for your time.
Bye-bye now.
Okay, bye.